This week on Jerusalem Dateline, ISIS launches a huge attack on Egypt, knocking on Israel's door. I'm Julie Stahl, filling in for Chris Mitchell. Before we look at those promises, let's turn to Egypt. Israel has closed its border crossings with Egypt after battles between Islamic terrorists and the Egyptian military. And the Israeli Prime Minister is warning ISIS is knocking on the door of Israel's border. George Thomas has more.
Smoke hung over Egypt's northern Sinai after the Islamic State's affiliate here killed at least 70 Egyptian soldiers. In an online post, the terror group called the operation a blessed raid and accused Egyptian forces of being an apostate army. The Egyptian army countered with multiple airstrikes, claiming to have killed more than 100 militants. But a former Israeli ambassador to Egypt says the Egyptian military response showed a huge intelligence failure and a lack of military expertise.
I think now we understand the Egyptian army is incapable of fighting strongly against guerrilla tactics. They need some help, some assistance, and it can come only from the United States. And as we know, Obama has refused to do it.
Islamic terrorists have killed hundreds of security forces since the Egyptian army toppled Islamist President Mohamed Morsi in 2013.
Egypt is the anchor, the basis of the Middle East, and if Obama's administration doesn't understand it, we are in trouble. Egypt is in trouble, Israel is also in trouble, and Europe is in trouble.
Meanwhile, Israel is watching the developments closely. It shares a border in the Sinai Peninsula and it has closed its two border crossings with Egypt. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warned his countrymen that terrorism is knocking at our borders.
We see ISIS at the gates, across the border in the Golan, across the border in Egypt.
George Thomas, CBN News.
Driver, right. Secretary of State John Kerry's in Cairo pushing for peace in the Middle East, and his meetings with UN and Egyptian officials part of an aggressive diplomatic push for some sort of ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. However, Kerry's relationship with Israel's government has cooled since the collapse of talks back in April. Senator Jim Inhofe is a ranking member of the Senate Armed Services Committee, and he's my guest now. And Senator, good morning to you.
Good morning, Bill.
Do these sides want a ceasefire now?
Well, I don't know, but the first thing I thought of when Kerry was arriving over there was, you know, he spent 9 months working on this thing and got nowhere, absolutely nowhere. And so you could argue that at least one side doesn't want a ceasefire, and that's Hamas. I think, though, it'd have to be very specific in what they would give up to have a ceasefire. And I'm talking about Netanyahu now. He made it very specific what he would have to have from them. So I would say your observation might be pretty accurate that they really don't want it.
What the Prime Minister said last night, I don't know where that sound's coming from. It looks like it's quieting down now. What the Prime Minister said on Special Report with Brett last night is that the Egyptians offered a deal, Hamas said no. Others have offered a deal, and Hamas has said no as well. And this is the other thing he said. Now listen and watch this.
This is the cruelest, most grotesque war that I've ever seen. I mean, not only does Hamas target civilians, ours, and hides behind their civilians, theirs, it actually wants to pile up as many civilian deaths as possible.
The other thing he accuses Hamas of doing is preventing women, children, and civilians from leaving areas where the Israeli military, the IDF, has notified them that bombs are about to land there. And he believes they are intentionally keeping innocent people inside of buildings and homes to be victims of these attacks.
Yeah, Bill, we know that for a fact. This is happening. He's putting the rockets, placing them very carefully in areas where, in homes, in hospitals, in buildings, surrounded by the population. And I think that this has been an observation that Netanyahu has made for a long period of time. They are actually responsible for killing their own kids, and this is the way that they're doing it.
What do you think is the state of the relationship between Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli government, and our administration now?
Well, it's not. It's worse than it's ever been before. I mean, let's stop and I believe that. Look what happened the first time that President Obama got into office. He went on his apology tour over there, and he said things that I just couldn't believe. He was talking about Israel, our only really good, consistent friend in the Middle East. And so I don't think that that's going to go unnoticed at any time. I think his effort was to cozy up with Palestinians, to some of the terrorist groups, Hamas and the rest of them, and that didn't work. Now, of course, it's not getting better because you had John Kerry. I'm the wrong one to evaluate John Kerry as one of 3 votes against his confirmation to be Secretary of State. But now he's over there. What's the first thing he did? My criticism has been that John Kerry never thought a good idea came from anyone other than a multinational group like the United Nations. So when he arrived there, the first thing he did is meet with the Secretary General. And then, of course, the other thing is try to give away money. I think he gave $47 million to the Palestinians. So I'm just looking at it now through the Israel's eyes and saying, are they really on our side? And I don't know. I'm sure they have to question that.
You know, there was a former Israeli ambassador that told Israeli television last night that they did not invite John Kerry to come back. And you saw the hot mic moment with Chris Wallace on Fox News Sunday where he saw the report and said, we're going back tonight. And indeed he did. He was there by yesterday morning. The question is he an invited broker on this deal by both sides or not?
No, I don't think so. And the reason I don't think so is because that both of them have realized after 9 months of efforts with all the resources that you could have, nothing happened. It didn't work. And if anything, things actually got worse because that's when the rockets started flying. And this is, you know, I just came back from Israel and I was there where they had the Iron Dome and the people who are operating that, they were anticipating at that time that this is going to happen. So I would just have to suspect that neither side was really all that excited about Secretary Kerry coming in.
Senator, thank you for your time. There does not appear to be a peace deal at hand right now. And it appears also we're a long way from a ceasefire. Jim Inhofe, thank you.
Breaking news concerning an Israeli spiritual leader who's calling for the Jewish people that's still scattered around the world. He's calling them to come back, to come home. The reason, he says, is because they are preparing. He's saying, move back to Israel to prepare for the imminent arrival of the Messiah. All right, we're talking about it. Let me show you the headline. Right here. Israeli spiritual leader calls for Jews to return to Israel before the planes are too full. Why? Well, it says it right here. I got it starred right there. You have this rabbi, the one that you see in the picture right there, literally saying, he's telling the Jewish people, come home, come to Israel, and prepare for the imminent arrival of the Messiah. The Messiah that they're looking for, the Messiah that they say is imminent, is it going to be Jesus? Or is it going to be the Antichrist first? Let me read it. Wow. All right, let me read this to you. Rabbi Chaim Kanivsky, a leading authority in mainstream ultra-Orthodox Judaism, has been giving clear and unequivocal messages recently that the coming of the Messiah is imminent. He is urging Jews to make Aliyah as soon as possible. Now, the word Aliyah in Hebrew is a verb meaning going up. It refers to immigrating to Israel, which is seen as higher spiritual action that can help herald in the coming of the Messiah. So this rabbi is saying in order for the Messiah to come, he's already going to come imminently, according to the rabbi. Come, Jewish people, come, and he'll come even quicker. When asked about the timing of the Messiah's arrival, Rabbi Kanivsky answered at the end, check this out. When asked about the timing of the Messiah's arrival, Rabbi Kanifsky answered, at the end of the sabbatical year. I didn't even read that far. I'm with you on this. Did you get that? At the end of the sabbatical year, that's September 12, 2015. We are in a sabbatical year. We are in what's called the year of the Shemitah. It's a sabbatical year. And the end of the sabbatical year is not the end of our calendar year. Our calendar year is December 31st, 2015. The end of the sabbatical year is September 12th, 2015. Several people have asked the rabbi to verify this. Yeah. And he has given the same answer each time. This year is a sabbatical year. And it is. It's the year of the Shemitah. And it will be ending the 29th day of Elul. And it is. The 29th day of Elul is September 12th, 2015. Which, check this out, by the Gregorian calendar falls on Saturday, September 12th, 2015. This is crazy stuff. Do you even believe me? Let me just outline it. Hold on. Do I have a highlighter? Somebody's like, come on, this is just too much. I'm with you. I am with you. What is going on? Where are they? They're expecting Messiah to arrive September 12th, 2015. Jesus said no one will know the day nor the hour. We got a rabbi calling out the day. He may have put the hour out. I'm not sure. So this cannot be Jesus, the Messiah. This cannot be Yeshua HaMashiach. Because Jesus said no one will know the day or the hour. So this must be either error, right? Or the unveiling of the lawless one, the antichrist. This rabbi is respected. This is not just some guy, who's on the Mount of Olives claiming to be Jesus or somebody. No, he's a respected rabbi in the nation of Israel. Let me continue reading this. In answer to Rabbi Kanifsky's call, the Jews of France have begun to arrive in Israel in blessed droves. People are heeding his word. After the attack that happened in Paris at the kosher market 6 months ago, you had Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, putting out a call, telling the Jewish people that lived in France to come home, to be protected, because of the terror attack that happened at the kosher market over in Paris. And he was criticized for it. They were saying, why are you telling them to leave? Well, we can protect them here in France. And Netanyahu's basically saying, if you could, they wouldn't have been attacked. Netanyahu believes he's been chosen for such a time as this to keep the Israeli people as protected as possible by the mighty hand of God. I'll say this, I don't agree with Netanyahu on everything, that's for sure, but I believe that he has been placed in his position strategically by the mighty hand of God to protect the nation of Israel as best and as long as possible. Because if he wasn't there, the elections just passed this past March, and he got reelected by the grace of, I'm telling you, it was by the mighty hand of God, because you had Obama sending his team that got him reelected in 2012 from the U.S., sent over to the nation of Israel, working for the opposition of Netanyahu to try to oust Netanyahu and get the opposition party in. And if they would have been in, we probably would have seen Jerusalem already cut in two. We would have already seen a peace agreement. Because the opposition parties that were going up against Netanyahu was like, we could do a peace agreement. We could cut Jerusalem in two. We could give out everything. We could, we want our houses too. We give you that. I mean, they were willing to give everything. So again, by the mighty hand of God and by the plan of God, Netanyahu is there. I know by the Spirit of the Lord that he's there to keep the nation of Israel as protected and as together as long as possible. Now, it's eventually, I have to say this, I've said it before, I'm going to say it again, Israel will be attacked. There will be war. It's in the Bible, Zechariah chapter 12 and 14. Jerusalem will be cut in two. That's biblical. It's in the book of Daniel, the book of Amos, the book of Revelation, chapter 11, verse 1 and 2.
The Middle East is undergoing a period of unprecedented volatility and violence. States that have existed for almost a century are disintegrating before our eyes, and Islamist extremists are rushing to fill up the vacuum. ISIS leads the Sunni radicals, Iran heads the Shiite militants, and Israel faces terrorist armies amassed on our borders in the north and in the south. A peace that isn't anchored in ironclad security arrangements on the ground in which Israel can defend itself, such a peace will simply not survive, and we will not agree to it. Our concerns are not pretexts or excuses. They are genuine. A peace deal that ignores these realities will be swept away by the winds of extremism and violence that blow throughout the Middle East.